Special thanks to gathaway1221 for kindly allowing me to use his DMC footage. Much appreciated. After playing Devil May Cry 3, I was left with a mostly positive impression of this game series. Devil May Cry 3 may have struggled in quite a few aspects, but it knew what it was good at, for the most part, and stuck to it. I was interested in how Devil May Cry would fare as the first title in the series. Would it be a good intro to the games? Or would it be a mess that makes you question how a series sprang forth in the first place? Before we begin, I need to clarify something that I have not clarified in the previous review. I don't do scores. If I did them, you would probably just skip to the end of the vid to see the number and some quick conclusive thoughts. I'd much rather have you hear what I have to say instead of looking at a number that really doesn't tell you too much at the end of the day. With that out of the way, let's get into Devil May Cry. Beginning the game, we get some exposition about Sparta, Dante's daddy dearest. It goes on with Sparta creating some type of barrier to prevent demons from going into the human world because Sparta loved humans or something. Then you get a shot of Dante in his shop on the phone. Suddenly, a dominatrix bursts in with her motorcycle, too fast for Dante to process, which causes the bewildered man to say,
"Whoa, slow down, babe."
Now they go to Lord Sandler, this one castle in which Mundus, the demon lord, resides. It is up to Dante to explore the castle and get to Mundus. From here, story is super limited. Basically, the game has you collect a ton of different objects, which are essentially just keys, to go further into the castle and face Mundus' legion of cannon fodder. The story isn't anything special. It's a basic plot that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. In fact, let's talk about the voice acting.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Peak. Amazing performance. Had me crying at the end. Crying of laughter. So the game tries to get you to care about Trish at the end, but she only pops up for a few seconds in the game. After she has the fake out death, she returns to assist Dante in his takedown of Mundus. The two hug in a way that would make Sigmund Freud proud, and then a plane that happens to be full of fuel drops down and they escape the island. Story clearly isn't the focus of this game. The real reason you want to play this game is to hack and slash away at demons. Combat is simple. Both square and circle are the gun/interact button. Circle could have easily been just the interact button, or even a gun switch button. But it's nice to be able to choose which button to shoot with, I guess. Triangle is your attack and X is jump. The cool thing here is that you can delay input for the triangle button to perform different attacks. Enemies drop red orbs upon defeat. These are used to unlock attacks that are used by pressing triangle in a certain direction or holding down triangle. Enemies drop a healing orb occasionally. I found that the game did a really good job at pacing you with the healing items. They must feel like you're rewarded for performing well, like a quick pick-me-up. But is there a way the game gauges your performance? Of course, the style letter? I don't know what exactly this is scoring. Sometimes it looks like it's based off of changing up your attacks, and at other times it just seems based off of damage. Because of this, I never really bothered with mixing up my attacks much. I didn't feel encouraged to do so since I did not understand what exactly caused my grade. Later on you get the Ifrit, which is a gauntlets and boots weapon with a fiery touch-up. Here comes an issue to mention: weapon switching. I thought that switching the weapon had to be paused in order to do so, but then I found out that you can click the right stick for that to be done. It doesn't matter, however, as the animation to do so is about as fast as a crippled tortoise. Because of this, I barely spent time switching my weapon, sticking mainly to one or the other, mostly Alistor. While the basic formula is good, more issues keep springing up in the combat. You can lock onto an enemy and focus your attacks on them, but I decided to not lock onto an enemy on an occasion where there were several enemies on screen. Here's where I found out that the game has an auto lock. Why? Legend of Zelda practically perfected it the first time that it did it, so why did you have to go and mess it up? This isn't too much of a problem once you figure it out, at least until a certain boss pops up. 3 times. Another thing is how powerful the guns are in this game. You can pretty much kill everything with the shotgun and the grenade launcher. While I do like guns being more than just chip damage for style points, they are too powerful in this game. Why bother comboing an enemy when a simple grenade shot is enough? Finally, air raid. Air raid makes the game a joke. There are rough edges in the combat itself. But overall, this was a great introduction to what pretty much spawned a new genre of games. But how does enemy and boss design fare? Enemies in this game are really easy. Every enemy can be dealt with rather quickly, and most won't pose much of a threat even in groups. New enemies are introduced that up the difficulty, but not by much. No normal enemy ever gets tedious, with one exception, and while some do pose a bit of a challenge, you won't see these enemies often enough to care. If an enemy is about to do a strong attack, it is well telegraphed. The enemies are really nothing special when compared to today's games, but once again, Devil May Cry does a good job at laying down a good formula for how these games should play. Bosses are a different matter. There are two fun bosses in this game, the Bird and the Dark Knight. The Bird is cool because you can change your playstyle in accordance to when the bird flies or lands, unless you air it. The Dark Knight is the best boss in the game. He feels like a beefed up regular enemy, fighting similarly to how Dante fights. I really like this since the fights feel like a true clash of swords, a test of who will come out on top. Every boss is used at least 3 times, and out of all of them, the Dark Knight is the only one that feels like a true rival. This is a really cool relationship done through gameplay. The other 2 repeats are a different matter. The Spider serves as a terrible introductory boss. No enemy has had a hard shell to teach you that a weapon attack could bounce off. The Spider has 2 weak points, the mouth and the tail. The mouth, however, is a terrible spot since it will attack pretty often from its front side and has its pincers in front of its head anyway. The only thing I like about the Spider is that you can get on its back to deal damage. This is cool. This boss really taught me one thing, however. Air raid. Nightmare is a pile of goober cum. This thing sucks. This is the boss where lock-on is an issue since you have to hit these target things. The problem with this is that if you are not hugging the wall, then you are going to be forced to hit Nightmare. He also has an attack that can send you to a different dimension, just to waste your time. At least he is damaged when you get out of this area. I hated having to fight Nightmare and the Spider multiple times. At least I had air. The final boss as well, I'm not a fan of inverted control supersonic. I really just spam Devil Trigger, and in the case of the second phase of the fight, I think that is what you are supposed to do anyway. If you can bypass the crappy platforming, that is. What about exploration? I have to say this right now. Devil May Cry has an identity crisis. The castle is oddly atmospheric. It clearly has a horror aesthetic in mind, and considering that this game was once a Resident Evil game, it does this part well. Exploring the castle is straightforward most of the time. Every mission basically has you collecting a new key with a different paint job, like Resident Evil. You get where I'm going with this, right? Is this supposed to be Resident Evil, or a hack and slash game? One moment it's oddly atmospheric, and the next, whoa! The tone is just all over the place. And it's not a good thing here. It almost feels like Dante is in the wrong game. Then we see the beginning of something terrible. Platforming! The game isn't built for platforming in mind. But it does it 4 times anyway. It's just so bad. Luckily, there is air. Another terrible idea was the underwater section sprinkled here and there. Never come back. Something I have to mention are the Red Orb's doors. From what I recall, there were only 2. Basically, those red orbs you get from enemies are used to open them. This was no issue for me, as ever since the first encounter of a red door, I have been mindful of these things popping up. I can see somebody going through the game, and them being stuck grinding red orbs just to progress though. Good thing that the devs seemed to notice it was a crappy idea, because they were only used twice. Exploration is nothing special here. Combine that with the bad parts, including a certain cave, and you have a basic trip with a couple of unwanted twists and turns. Finally, how does the music fare? It's good, but nothing special. There are 2 exceptions though. The Living Cave theme is both atmospheric and a bop at once. This helped make up for the frustrating level. Another is the castle theme. This would be perfect in another game. It has a creepy tone to it, but I have to mention something here. At this time, Capcom and other companies were using the song Burble and Pine by David Torn, which the man himself had no idea was being used. It's such a great tune, and is most recognized in the song Serenity from Resident Evil 4. From what I understand, it was technically legal, but Torn did not get the credit he deserved. Give this original track a listen, please. Devil May Cry may be a game with an identity crisis, but there's a reason why it is influential to the hack and slash genre. It laid the groundwork for a good system for a game series, introduced a likable protagonist, and has some Oscar-worthy performances. However, it is more interesting to play this game so you can look at the beginning of the hack and slash genre. The game is decent, but repetitive and clearly had room to grow. With Devil May Cry and 3 under my belt, I have a good impression of the series, as well as expectations set forth for me. Once again, thank you gathaway1221 for allowing me to use the DMC footage. That mission file select thing really messed me up, you know. But anyway, that was it everybody. Take care.